Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching. Welcome to NUFC Talk TV. Myself, Gary, and my mate, the Mighty Win. Again, welcome to everybody that's watching across all the platforms. Thanks to all the mods that work tirelessly in the background. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoy the show, or even dislike if you don't. It just helps us get further as a channel to NUFC supporters. Subscribe, it's totally free. Hit that bell for future content. We upload videos all of the time, 7 days a week. So if you hit the bell, you will be notified as and when they appear. If you want to support the channel, then help us grow, become a member. Small monthly fee, that'll give you behind the scenes content as well as a chance of winning prizes. Don't forget to check our webpage, NUFC Talk TV Talk.tv for news and content. It's all ad free. It's done for the love of the club. If you have a question, then put a Q in that question at the start, because then we can highlight it in the chat and do our best to put it on the screen. But if you want to guarantee it, then please use the $ and we will read that message out. But again, apologies, we won't show all of the messages as you guys just do a little bit of a chat amongst yourselves. But any members, any gifted members or new members will be highlighted and will be thanked as we go. Well, obviously, it's the afternoon before or after the press conference with Eddie Howe, and he's made some inroads into the Man City game. A few, obviously, concerns. There was but again, he's got such a great way of dealing with the press. His character seems to have changed. There seems to be a little bit more of that body language that I expected. He's smiling. He's having a bit of camaraderie with the guys. Great to hear there wasn't too much mentioned about the ongoing saga in the background there. But what did you make of the press before we get into some of the finer details, mate?
We'll come on to it, but of course.
Hey, lads. Breaking news. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
The club just posted 7-8 minutes ago that Darren Eales is stepping down as CEO because he's got blood cancer.
Oh, gee.
Wow.
That's
Look
not
at the
good.
Twitter. Look at the Twitter page. This is breaking news, and it is very, very tough news right now for Newcastle United.
I was going to bring up that they were bringing in somebody else, behind the scenes in the board level, but that's a bit of a shocker, to be fair.
Yeah, some form of blood cancer, and he's stepping out. As you know, well, you should know, Gary, you've been there. Blood, blood cancer, blood infections. Obviously, that's a lot, but that's no joke. And
No. Uh, leukemia, whatever you want to call it,
leukemia,
is an awful cancer to have, and I do wish him well, and my thoughts go to his family as well as all the best to himself to getting over this. But like I say, I did hear through the grapevine, and I was wondering. Oh, again, you can only speculate on whether they're just bringing somebody else to support this guy in the background. But obviously, this is the reason now. So that's broken part of the news that I was going to bring you this morning. So again, thanks for that, Chris.
Anyways, I gotta head to work, but yeah, tough news for Newcastle.
Very tough.
Yeah.
It never rains till it pours in Newcastle, does it?
Well, now obviously, if Darren Eales has got blood cancer, obviously our thoughts and prayers go with him and his family.
Absolutely. But I tell you something.
However, we know that the chairman's come over again.
Yeah.
Some were thinking it was to take in the Man City game. Some were thinking it was because he was coming over to knock heads together, etc. People have been pointing fingers here, there, and everywhere. I don't even remember what my take on the Mitchell Howe thing was, but it was that if we've got Eddie Howe, to recap on what I said at the time, if we've got Eddie Howe, who we know is a fantastic coach, and player person with an immensely successful record, albeit not winning big stuff yet. And if you've got Paul Mitchell, who's acknowledged as one of the best directors of football in the business, again, with a proven track record of recruitment and player development, you've got two of the best chess pieces on the board. If there's trouble between them, it's up to one man to sort it out. And that's the guy at the top. So if this guy at the top, if the chess player, Darren Eales, has got the best chess pieces on the board and still can't win a game, then you argue that it's the player and not the chess pieces that are the problem. Again, I'm putting two and two together. And my full sympathy with all of this. Could this be the reason why he hasn't been full on in the job and able to be on top of everything, because he's had this going on in the background and it's been worrying him. It's been distracting him from his duties.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this'll be testing that has been done, obviously a few weeks ago, and you have a 2 weeks, especially when it comes to this, where you are looked at getting treated as soon as possible. And again, we all said and we all questioned why he'd gone pretty quiet after seeing him dancing in the in the bar and in the stack, yeah. And you start looking at it and you start asking what is going on. And then I read the message that there was another senior member coming into the boardroom. Then I started questioning, what is happening there? Is there somebody there to support Eales in this obviously saga? Because you always have somebody like a HR person who will come in and obviously try and negotiate a way of getting around any problems going on. But obviously it's a little bit more serious than two guys just disagreeing. I mean, crikey, as you saw on yesterday's show, we disagree all the time, but we get on with it. It's a case of getting on with it. We only have a small opinion on the actual facts, and it's how you take that and run with it. But this is life threatening. It's a bit different to not being able to sort out a niggle in the background, because it's a teething problem on the club going forward. But he has a lot more worries than two guys who are disagreeing at the minute. I know as a fan, and I know as fans out there, you would want them to be, getting on with it and doing what's best for the club. But when you've got something like that hanging over your head, it's an awful lot to take on board. And I'm sure if it works anything like I've worked in the background, it affects more than just him. It'll affect a lot of people. Now, is this the reasons why you've seen the lads not actually going out there and making an inroad into the game? Because news like this, especially with Darren Eales, is a liked fella. Everybody that you talk to, even Chris said when he met him over in the States, what a lovely guy he was. Everybody, even Roy, who's met him previously, have all said what a lovely guy this lad is. And I haven't heard, apart from obviously social media now saying what's happened to Darren Eales since we've had all this saga going on in the background. Well, now you know the reasons why, and I'll hold my hand up. I was one of those people questioning what's happening with Darren Eales, because that's his job.
And me, yeah, exactly.
So apologies, because like I say, I'll say that on air. I apologise for any remarks that I've made that could be deemed as detrimental to his condition, because at the end of the day, again, as a supporter, I want what's best for Newcastle United going forward, and because we don't know what's going on, and maybe that's another great thing. Should we really speculate until we know the facts? And I think that's probably a lesson learnt going forward, if I'm honest, because like I say, this could be that one reason. got nothing to do with anything else. Why it's affected the lads' performance throughout the team.
Well, the other thing, particularly in relation to Newcastle, of course, is that this slump that we've had has been attributed, well, at least partly attributed by a lot of people, myself included, to the fact that Amanda and Maida had left. You know, when again I've alluded to the fact that, like, the team photos and stuff, where they were always seen in the photos, and Mitchell, Bunce, and Eales haven't been seen in the latest ones. That had something that was a big contributory factor in the slump. And you know, it would appear now that could well be the case, because we haven't had a proper hands-on guy with his hand on the tiller, because he's obviously, and rightly so, had his mind on other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it, isn't it?
You know, on a purely selfish note, what an opportunity for our guys tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
To come out and give them a pick-me-up.
Now it's out, obviously, and it's now been stated via Newcastle news. They've come out now and obviously said that, like Chris said, it's all over social media. I really do look at it now and think, like you say, that could have been that pressure, you know, because obviously, you know, I know it sounds crazy, like, because all of the players will want to take this off the system and get it out of the air, and they will all be having obviously talks amongst themselves in the background. But it don't half look, and now it's out. It could just lift that weight and just let the lads just go out there and do the business. And you know what? What a great way of patting him on the back and wishing him all the best if we do take it to City tomorrow and get one over him. For me, that would be, you know, the handshake, the best handshake anybody could give me for my future, to be fair. But like I say, you know, at the end of the day, we do, as a fan group, we do wish him all the best. And like I say, I hope whatever treatment he gets is successful going forward.
I tell you what it also does, Gary, because okay, they've made the announcement today, but somebody somewhere in the club must have known something about this in this interim period, and not a word of it has been leaked. Now that says a lot about the, if you like, ability to remain insular that the club has for not letting stuff get out, so that it also presumably means that when they want something to get out, they'll leak it to their, you know, their own preferred outlets, which is when we as the fans see everything. But it also speaks to the fact that when they don't want something to get out, as in when we made the move for Tenali, when we made the move for Isak, that is kept, it's possible to keep that under very, very close wraps until the final stages of the deal haven't actually been done. Which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. It is.
So
it is strange though, isn't it, when you look at it, because like I say, I was just going back to I'd bookmarked it the other day, and I thought to myself, I wonder what's going on there, because obviously there's talks about all this, going on behind the scenes. Yeah, here we go. And what I've got here is Newcastle United will shortly confirm a new appointment to the board connected to the Reuben brothers, someone who has extensive experience in managing commercial property, according to iSport, because it was an iSport that I looked at it. The suggestion is in the article that the club are finally getting their ducks in a row to commit to some big projects around the stadium situation and the training ground, which needs to be addressed if we are to tackle the gap between us and the so-called Big Six, and realise our aims, the aims of our ownership to be an elite Premier club going forward. And I think, like I say, it's that nail, I suppose, on the head, because, like I say, I couldn't understand where that was working, because I always thought, knowing what Eales had done at Atalanta and the way he developed the ground there, he would have obviously done a very similar role with us going forward, with the guys that are also now in the background to support him. The guys who have come on board, the financial guy. You've now got the lad who did a lot with the airport in Manchester on development and things like that. So they've, like I say, they've got all the chess pieces, but obviously there was one part of that chess piece obviously not clicking.
Well, it was the player, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I say, I'm hoping, touch wood, that there's two pieces of good news comes from this, and that he gets well, and potentially makes some return, if he's able to, if his condition suits. And obviously the club now move forward, with somebody else at the helm, where the pressure's completely off Darren Eales. So we'll let you know as soon as we get a name. But that was a couple of days ago. I'd seen that, and I was leaving it for today's show. But there you go. And as daft it looks, it actually finishes that point off completely now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But like I say, as of yet, we don't know any names. So going on to the press conference, mate, the presser, like we started, it was
Yeah,
very
that was
good to
it.
see Eddie Howe back to his best, if I'm honest.
And wasn't the body language much
Totally
better?
different. Yeah, totally different. Worked well with the press, didn't really push anything back, answered virtually every question apart from one. But I mean, that's typical.
If that's the same one that I've highlighted, we'll no doubt come
Uh,
on to that.
have you done your magic trick and written them down for me? Because I've got a house full of snotty people that I'm having to
I
nurse at the
haven't
minute.
actually, but I mean,
Well,
I could. But can you not put can you put our YouTube video up?
I've got the actual one from the thing, but it's 30 minutes long. I just didn't know whether people wanted to listen to it again, and because it was on.
I think it's actually worth going through virtually point by point.
Okay, well, we can do that.
And
I'm not against that. I just didn't want to be told off, because, like, obviously we videoed it first thing this morning, didn't we? Live, while it was going on. Chris was good enough to get up out of bed because
I
it's
mean,
10 early in the morning.
Niall Powell there's just in the chat there saying the journalists were obviously told not to ask about Mitchell. Well, I don't think they were, because as we'll find out, one of them did.
Yeah, that's right. Like I say, I think it's more or less been put to bed, which is great, if I'm honest. So yeah,
Yes.
what we'll do then, because like I say, I have got some questions from a lot of the press, but they miss so much out when they just put the main points. Because for me, the idea of this is to get across.
And by the way, the sound was so much better today.
Yeah, that's what I said to you. Our
You
sound system now seems probably one of the best
can
out there.
hear everything.
Since they've developed it. So let's do it. Let's run it through, and then, like I say, if it gets a little bit boring, you should show our channel's version. Lol.
But by the way, that's a fact, though. If you want to see it again, we've now got it
is
on
live.
live on NUFC TalkSport.
Yeah. I'm just going to make sure I've got it so it's nice and close. And here we go then. This is Eddie Howe's press conference, literally as we start. And then what we'll do when we get to a point where we can have a chat about something, we'll stop it and then we'll go through each individual point. It is 30 minutes long, so apologies for the time, but I think it's important to obviously highlight certain points.
I think it's probably one of his most important that he's ever done.
Firstly, can we just check on injuries? Have you got any fresh problems? Anyone who's been out closer to returning this weekend?
No, I don't think we have anyone coming back that's been out. Matt Targett has had a flare-up of eczema, so he's been sort of nursing that for the last couple of weeks. It's been quite a bad episode for him, so we're hoping to get him back training today, but he won't be involved in the game. And then we've got the long-term injured. In terms of fresh injuries, Alex is still nursing that toe problem.
The postponement of the cup tie in midweek was beyond yours and Wimbledon's control. In terms of your schedule and training and preparation for a big week, what impact did it have for you?
Well, of course, it gave us the opportunity to train, which was probably a good thing for us. 2 really good days where we've gone to work with the team and to try and solve some of the issues from the Fulham game. So I'll look at that as a positive. I think whatever situation you're in, if we had the game, it would have been a positive. If we didn't, we always try and look at the positive outlook on the situation. So pleased with the work that we've done. And yeah, we're looking for a better performance.
Wimbledon are coming here now next Tuesday. I'm sure you've seen that a fundraising attempt to help them repair their pitches passed more than £100,000, and Newcastle United made a significant contribution to that, which I'm sure you'll be really proud about, the fact that they've tried to help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where the football community does so well for each other, because that support is vital. I mean, you look at the pitch there, it looked in a really bad way. Had no idea until sort of minutes before my press conference of the situation. But yeah, we wish them well and we hope their pitch gets back working very soon.
You referred there to some of the issues in the performance at Fulham. When you've had the chance to look back at it and analyse everything, have you reached any new conclusions compared to what you felt at full time?
Yeah, lots of conclusions. There was one of those games you look back and you see, you always have an instant opinion. That's why it's very difficult when you come and speak to the press straight after a game, because you have sort of your initial thoughts and then you watch the game again, and sometimes the game reveals itself in a totally different way. I think it was one of those games where we analysed a lot, took away a lot from it to try and implement into our game. So it was one of those games, I think, where you review and you think, no, that we didn't like ourselves. So some honest conversations this week and hopefully a response.
And how much, given the performance at Fulham and some of the criticism from fans about the way you've played this season, do you feel that in such a big game this weekend that you need to deliver a big performance?
I think we always need to deliver. I think there's always that pressure, but yes, I do. I think we have a responsibility to show our true selves, to turn up and give our best. That feeling is always there from me and from everybody. I think the players know, they're very honest with themselves as well. I think they know that last week wasn't good enough. So that internal reflection can be really healthy, and sometimes a performance like that can be actually healthy for the long term if you use it in the right way. That's what we're trying to do.
And finally, that's something that you have done in the home games against Manchester City, isn't it? Last season in the league with a really stretched squad, you almost got something. You were leading for a long time. You won the League Cup tie at St James's last season, and the 3-3 draw 2 years ago, which was a bit of an epic game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we've had some really good games against them at home, maybe not so much away. But reflecting on those games that you're talking about, there were sort of nearly moments for us, especially in the last home game where we felt we did a lot right, but didn't get the result. And that's probably testament to them and their quality and their attitude, the way that they fought to the end and scored a goal in the dying seconds. But I think it shows that against that type of quality opposition that Manchester City possess, you have to be good for the whole 95 minutes, however long the game is. You can't switch off for a second. Defensively, we're going to have to be very good in this game.
Thanks, Matthew.
Right, let's just concentrate on what a couple of points that he made there, because obviously all over social media, the first point is obviously Matt Targett having a flare up of eczema. Now he's having he's getting a bit of a beating, if I'm honest. But anybody that knows what eczema is, it's a breaking open of the layer of dermis that's on the top of the skin, so it becomes quite an open wound. Now we also know that there's a lot of dressings that go on turf, on the grasses and things like that, to obviously help the grass grow, and be strong. Hence, they've got the nylon inwoven into the grass now. So obviously there's an infection risk there, with Matt Targett. So it's I know everybody's saying, like, oh, this is silly. He's on £100,000 a week and everything else. But the infection risk compared to a game is the reasons why he's not going to be involved in any games, I would imagine, until they've sorted out this outbreak. Now, there's lots of queries of why people have eczema. Now, unfortunately, eczema usually comes with a lot of other health issues. Some people say it's linked with asthma. So obviously, as a professional footballer, you'd be like questioning whether you are asthmatic. But obviously, the big reason for it is the fact that, like I say, it'll be a big infection risk if any particles get into an open wound, and it's very difficult as a footballer to have it dressed and to play competitive football. So I do have to give a little bit of a rationale for why he won't be picked for the team while he's got that. And like I say, it's a horrible disease, if you like, and it affects a lot of people in different ways. So I just think we can be a little bit harsh at times, even though I don't think he would have been in the starting lineup anyway. But it was lovely to obviously them talk about obviously the Wimbledon effect, and obviously the contributions that they'd had to Wimbledon. But what do you think of Isak now? What do you think of?
Well, I think we've got Isak to come on. I think, first of all, thank you, Trolls. 20 Norwegian krona, and not content with that, we've suddenly been able to gift memberships again. So Trolls has gifted 5. Can you have a quick look and see who they've gone to?
Yeah. I'll have a quick look. They have gone to David Arasamina. Apologies if I've mispronounced that, David. But welcome. It's a new name that I haven't seen before. Kenny W's got a membership. Geordie Danaz, Lars Lonscock has got one, and Geordie Revolution's got one.
Excellent,
welcome everybody who's been gifted those memberships.
Now, Trolls has also put in a comment. But Trolls, I'm going to leave your comment till the end, if you don't mind. Basically saying he doesn't trust anymore after this. Doesn't trust Howe anymore after what he said in the presser. But we'll come back to that at the end, Trolls, if you don't mind.
Well, there's a lot going out at the minute, isn't it? Regarding Eddie Howe's future when it comes to where he should be and where he shouldn't be. If anybody's not seen it, there's the Gary Neville, and you've got people now on Talk Sport and everybody else that are all saying where he should be and how he should go, and he should be his own boss. But there's
been a member.
6 months membership, matey. Thank you ever so much for your support, Trolls, as always. Really good thing. But yeah, we'll come on to.
I don't want how we are anymore. I don't see how to grow. Yeah, we'll come on to that, Bonnie lad.
Come on to that. I do think there's a lot more. There's a lot more there than meets the eye, if I'm honest. But we'll see. So, what did you think of obviously the idea now that we played Isak with a broken toe last week? and his injection got him through his game. So it was an anaesthetic that he was given to the toe that blocks the entire toe, so he has no pain. And obviously that wore off 10 minutes.
That's a bit later on.
Yeah, I know.
Well, because what I said about that is, will they never learn?
Yeah, it seems to be same old, doesn't it?
I said on Saturday before the game, because we'd heard that he'd had an injection. I said, if he is needing an injection to play, he shouldn't play. Simple as. He's made it. I know I will go on to what Eddie says about it, but when will we ever learn? And if that's presumably, if that is the case, then our new fitness supremo, Mr. Bunce, has okayed it.
Yeah, well, the problem is, like I said, when we were talking about it originally, when he had this toe injury that come out of nowhere, I did state it could potentially be a fracture. And if it's not a displaced fracture, then it could be just taped and dealt with. Because there ain't a lot you can do medically to a broken toe. It's like a finger. You can just strap it and get on with it. The biggest problem is consciously, it's how you deal with it mentally.
And could that be a contributory factor in Isak not getting stuck into challenges and standing up to challenges? And, you know, so whichever way you look at it, it's having a detrimental effect on the team's performance.
Yeah, and I think Eddie Howe admitted that, obviously, when he was talking about when he went back and had a look at the Fulham performance, he admitted that there was obviously some areas of concern, and obviously opened up a conversation that he had with the team about certain points. And like I say, there's lots comes from this further on down the field. But it is interesting.
We've got Ben here from the US saying, I've got allergies, eczema and asthma my entire life. I've never missed a game or practice due to eczema. This is mad, guys.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not saying you, but you are your own boss, Ben. At the end of the day, and if you decide to go and run around with eczema and with open wounds and stuff like that, then that's your choice. When you've got professional footballers who do this for a living, and the infection, there's lots of things, and I'm not going to go into details, but there's lots of infections that can ruin your life, never mind career. And it's to me, it's like I said, it's erring on the side of caution. Like I say, but nobody can stop you as a individual doing what you think is best. So, like I say, that I'm the same, Ben. I've done a lot of sports, but I've done it off my own bat, and I take the consequences for doing that. He was probably advised by the medical team that it's not the way forward. And like I say, you don't know what's been put on the grasses to support them. And like I say, the last thing you want is stuff going into an open wound that can, you know, the one thing that if anybody's interested, go and have a look at some pictures of necrotizing fasciitis. It's not nice. So what did you feel from his comments regarding the Fulham encounter, where he obviously had a
well, you know, again, we'll get, if you let it run a bit, we'll come on.
All right, we'll come on to that. Come on to a bit more juicy bits.
Yeah.
All right.
Nick, hi Eddie. You said there'd been some internal reflection. Have you sensed a determination from the players this week to try and put that Fulham defeat right?
Yeah, I do. I sense an acknowledgement from everybody, me included, everyone in it together, that last week wasn't good enough. It wasn't a great reflection on our style, our way of playing. So I think you have games like that. The most important thing is that they're at an absolute minimum, and you learn from it and you come back and show how good you are.
I mean, they don't come much bigger against the champions. It's a tough fixture. I wonder, could it be the perfect fixture in some ways, perversely, to try and correct what happened last weekend?
I think that's again how we have to look at it. I think the next fixture is hugely important for us after that kind of game. So I think everyone will be highly motivated for the match. I think the crowd will be really there for us if we can inspire them. And we need to make it as difficult as we can for our opponents. And we can only do that if we're at our very best.
Last one from me, Eddie. One of the key talking points could be a key area of the pitch tomorrow, this midfield battle. Manchester City, we know without Rodri, Kevin De Bruyne, we think a major doubt as well. How do you see that panning out tomorrow? You got some big calls yourself, obviously, in that area of the pitch.
Well, I see, yeah, regardless of whoever they play in there, they're going to have an outstanding team of midfielders. However Pep decides to play, he's going to have a team full of players that have won continually over the last few years. So I don't think it changes anything from our perspective. I think we have to do our part, and that is play at our best and give everything we can physically to win the match.
Thanks, Nick. Andy?
Well, Neddy, I know you watch games back many, many times. How many times have you watched the Fulham game back?
Yeah, I think it's one of those that we've gone back through it various times to look at various different things. As I say, sometimes you're looking for things that you can't find. This was one I think was really obvious for me where we went wrong, which I'll obviously keep internal to myself. But we've done the work with the players on the.
Can you stop it there, Gary?
Attitude to that work's been very good, and I think we're.
There you go.
So
say?
there, said you've obviously looked several times at the videos and etc. What conclusions have you drawn? Well, that's something I'll obviously keep to myself.
Well, I mean, we also
because that to me was a golden opportunity for Eddie to turn round and say what it was that he'd concluded.
You don't say your players under the bus.
Does the fact that he's saying, no, I'm going to keep that to myself, is that because he doesn't know?
No,
is that because he's looking and he can't? Because again, if that is the case, then it's very worrying. Because we've all looked at it, we might all picked up different things from it. In fact, I'm sure we have done. But we've all taken something from it.
Yeah, I do think a lot of it is the fact that he doesn't want to throw individual players, because he does emphasise a lot about the team not working well together and things like that. And we both said, you both got players that support the left side more than the right side, and so forth and so forth. So for me, there is always going to be a number of individuals that will get thanks, Noel, that will get the I suppose the brunt of the info. I mean, Noel says there, Eddie thinks the midfield is okay. What the F is he watching?
I think it's more, if Eddie thinks the midfield is okay, what the hell is he watching?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like I said,
well, again, he does come onto that as well, but
he's not going to individualize the issues.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to stop it there was because he said, we've taken a lot from it, but I'm not going to tell you what.
No, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. He will keep a lot of the stuff, because obviously the more you give the press, the more they'll run with it, as we've seen, right? And they will try and make a.
And I think you're right as well. By the way, I think it's because without saying exactly what they're taken from it, which is what we've all taken from it, you would effectively be throwing various players under the bus.
And the biggest problem you've got, our midfield, you take out the main three, you ain't got much to support it. And then there'll be other people then arguing the point that, well, you've taken him out and you've put a lesser player in his place. And we all said that the other day, didn't we? It's a great excuse for him now to start saying, well, we haven't lost with these players on the park. Yeah. And it's that's what I said. It's so you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. So it's certainly something that you're going to keep close to your chest, and you don't want to give tactics away either, because obviously if he starts talking about what he's been trying to implement on the park, then you don't really give any information away to the opposition.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Win. Jody Toonvalley. So Win, you want Howe to throw players under the bus? No point if you don't believe what Howe says. No, I'm saying that's Eddie being Eddie. Eddie, but getting back to the old Eddie, with a little twinkle in his eyes, saying, "Yeah, I know, I know what's wrong, but I'm not telling you that." Because he won't throw players under the bus, and neither should he. No great manager ever throws players under the bus.
No, exactly. And to be fair, like I said, we've all got our pressure points when it comes to where Eddie sits regarding where he is on the table of eliteness, if you like. And like I say, that's something we can talk about at a different show. But we have got to look at it for what he's trying to achieve. He's got, in my eyes, in my opinion, even though we've got a deeper squad now, we've still got a limited amount of quality within that squad. And you have got to try and make out. You've got to try and make the best of what you've got, and that's what he alludes to a bit further in. It isn't easy to get the best out of players when you're obviously out there and publicly rollicking them, if you like. Some managers get the best out of them, others don't. What is Ginger's just saying there? He's mentioned my name, so I'm going to put it up on the screen. Gary, football, as you say, and a board does not reflect on a squad. I'm sorry, Eddie and his staff have to hold their hands up as the results blaming anything else belittles the manager. Well, I don't think he's blaming. He's not blaming the background, but I do understand. You've got to also understand the lads aren't robots, and when you've got somebody news will affect players different ways. And we've all seen it. We've all watched this season. Every player on that park hasn't played to anything like the potential, and we can question why it's happening and anything else. But it's difficult to motivate players when there's just something going on in the background. Now, we all pointed the finger at the relationship between Eddie and Mitchell, Paul Mitchell, but who's not to say that it's got something to do with Eales? We don't know, and we will never know, and that's what I said. We all sit down and question.
Put that back up again, Gary, because my point is, and always has been, that for a club to go forward, it has to be the whole club, from top to bottom, all pulling in the same direction. So what the board do, and any friction between the board and the manager, let's say, is always reflected on the team's performance. Always. Throughout football history, it can be seen that if there's not harmony between the boardroom and the playing staff, the club is going nowhere. And great clubs have fallen on the back of that.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I say, I mean, he Ginger also makes a point which you've starred, and obviously, as we're at that point, we might as well say it. And he says, "Sorry, our results are down to training staff, the manager, and players. Not at any level is it down to the higher ups. I'm sorry, results are based on tactics and the manager getting the best out of the players." And I totally agree. It is down to obviously manager relationship with tactics being put across and the training staff getting on board to what these tactics are. And my critique of Eddie is he doesn't want the players, and he goes on to mention it. He'll make a tactic up to deal with the opposition on a week-to-week basis. The one thing we've had this season that we can't give him an excuse for is we haven't had breaks playing the likes of Wimbledon in the cup, because obviously that was postponed. So he's had a full run this week at getting the tactics right for Man City. But at the end of the day, there's a section of.
And he had a full week for Fulham, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. There's a part that still makes you think about what's being said once the tactics are all done, when the players go back inside and they all get back together. What's being talked about? It could be, like I say, it could be just an emotional thing, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that now it's out in the open and it can be something that's been put to bed, because obviously these guys will be pressed by the PR guys about not talking to anybody, not mentioning anything, because it's just going to add fuel to the fire with all the journos on speculation. This is happening and that's happening. It's not just football, and if anybody tells me that, you know, because I've got a little bit of coaching background, that whatever you say on a weekend or through the week to play that weekend, if something happens to that individual through the week that I'm not aware of personally, it will affect their game on the weekend, regardless of how good you are or how not good you are. So I think, we've got to stop thinking that these guys are robots and you can just plug them in, program a certain thing, and they're going to go out there and run with it. The other concerning thing about what Eddie's trying to do per se is the fact that if you've not got continuity of a training plan, and again he alludes to this a little bit further down, when you're trying to jiggle the same tactic to get the best for the opposition, sometimes it can confuse players, and that also then you can show, as we saw, it was evident that there was a total unbalanced midfield. Now that to me was just a positional thing. You've got two left-minded midfielders playing on the right-hand side, and he tried to change it, and it still happened. It still didn't work out the way we wanted. I'm not saying that was the only factor. I'm just saying that you could see it from that point when they tried to jiggle things around a little bit. It was a little bit smoother in patches, but it was far too easy to get through us. And we know it's going to be a similar thing to how we played them last season. It's going to be a 4-5-1 low block, and we're just going to try and weather the storm for 80% of the possession, and then just try and get on the breaks. It's virtually going to be that way, and because that's the way people play Man City these days. And we're just going to hope we can take something from the game. But like I say, at the end of the day, I don't look at individual performances and say this ability is down to one thing, or this lack of performance is down to one thing. It could be a number of things. We all say about, like, Anthony Gordon. There was a really good shout that I heard. Obviously, Anthony Gordon's contract being discussed and everything else by the club. And again, we'll come on to that a bit further down. We all know that Eddie's is a good coach. He's a really good coach. The biggest thing I've often said is when you look at putting that information across to the players, if it is too much for them to take on board, we've seen Hall coming in as a 6. We've seen Tino come in as the 6 and play the inverted role. Sometimes it doesn't just fit in the first few games if he's trying a different thing. He's talked again in a minute about the identity, and like I say, we'll come to more on the tactics a bit further down.
Let's
There's
press
a
on a bit.
lot of changes going on at the minute. There's a lot of changes. So I don't think you can put it down to one thing or the other.
We're all focused on delivering a better performance.
Like you've said, it's not been the easiest in terms of performances recently. When the going does get tough as a manager, what's your kind of process to get through that personally?
Hard work. Don't think there's any other way than training really well, because I think if you train really well consistently, the performances will come on the pitch. So I think there's been a real refocusing this week on how we train, the standards that we deliver in our training. And I have to say, I think the players historically have delivered that very, very well here for a long period of time. But of course, nothing stays the same. Everything's always changing. And we have to stay on top of the small details and make sure that we're managing ourselves correctly.
Nick talked about the midfield there. I know it's something that we've talked about in press conferences in the last few weeks, in particular, the balance of that midfield. What exactly is the balance you're looking for in the Newcastle midfield?
It's a good question. What is the balance? Well, the balance is that there's a good harmony between all the players, that we understand our roles, we understand the positions that we're playing, and we execute that and what that position requires. I've got no issue with the balance in midfield. That wasn't the issue against Fulham. That there was sort of a bigger problem. So I think whoever plays, we're looking for them to deliver a Newcastle performance.
Just last one from me. It's arguably the toughest test in world football right now, taking on Manchester City. So the big question, what do your players have to do tomorrow to stop Manchester City?
Well, I think that there's a variety of things, but I think just looking at ourselves, I think we have to carry a threat. I think we have to be an attacking force in the game. We have to be brave with the ball as well. So forgetting their qualities, which you know, it's very easy to say you can't because they're an outstanding team. But I think just looking at us, we have to, as I say, be that attacking force in the game and not forget what we're good at. And I think that's absolutely crucial.
Thank you, Andy. Nisha?
Morning, Eddie. We talked about Rodri being out and De Bruyne likely out as well. Does it just give you that bit of extra belief that you can get a result? You know, they're missing arguably two of their best players.
I think it's dangerous to focus on that because you prepare the team that you think you're going to face, and then you try and find a way to compete with that team and then give them problems and deal with the problems they're going to give you. It's the same for us. You know, we've been carrying long-term injuries now for a long period of time, and no one would regularly hear us talking about Sven Botman and Callum Wilson and Louis Miley and et cetera, Jamal Lascelles. So, and last year that wasn't really the case. You have to deliver the team that you have with the team that you have, and I've got no doubt Manchester City will. Pep's done that throughout his management career. He finds a way with the players that he has. Our challenge is, whoever he picks, is to be competitive and try and impose ourselves on the game.
You said before that Tonali is ready to start for you should you need him. Is he any closer to starting in the Premier League for you? I mean, we saw what he's done in big games for Italy. Could he be that big game player for you? Well,
certainly he's got the experience playing for a team like Milan and Italy. They're high pressure games. They're games where you're consistently under pressure to perform. So I think he's got that in his game. Thought he did well again when he came on against Fulham. So yeah, he's definitely knocking at the door.
And just finally for me, this is a slightly challenging period for you at the moment as you're still trying to get the best of your players this season. How does it rate in terms of the other challenges you've had to face? It's a different one because you've got a lot of points on the board, probably not far off your target for this stage, but probably the performances haven't been up there.
I think you're always in a state of challenge. You're always in a state where you're having to respond, whatever the situation is, whether it's on the pitch, off the pitch. I think there's always questions asked when you're in this position. I'd probably take that way at the moment where we've got the points, but we haven't performed because I know the quality's there. I know the individual abilities there. I know the collective spirit's there. But it's, it's time to show it. And, we have to deliver.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nish. We've got to Damien and then Lee.
Just going to stop it there. Again, a couple of interesting points. Obviously, he turned around and said that question about the balance in the midfield. Now, we've said all season, there seems to be a couple of individuals. What we said from last season, our main players, if you like, when you look on paper, three of them, Tonali, Bruno, and J7, would grace many teams in the Premier League. And I often look at what he's trying to work out when it comes to trying to get all of these players on the park and get the camaraderie going, getting the balance right in the midfield. Now, obviously, he likes players to come in that have performed really well in training, that are showing the understanding of what's required from the tactics that are set out. Now, you're always going to have, again, it's something that we aren't privy to all of the time, so we can't make a decision on who we would play. I mean, when we do our predictions, we look at the best 11. It doesn't mean it's the best 11 in training, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be, what tactically it would suit the tactics that he set out to play the opposition. And it's difficult because people will again always assume or make a speculation on, putting a team down on paper will always have a good chance against the opposition. What we have got going for us is one of their key players, Rodri, obviously not being available. It does make it different. It does make a difference for them, but they have got a deeper squad. They can put like for like type of players on, not as good for that position, but certainly still a very good player. And I think that is where Eddie's problem has been. For 2 windows now, we really haven't been involved in the market at any point. And some teams just need an impetus of players to freshen it up a little bit, to give you that ability to be able to just move players around. At this present moment in time, with the squad that Eddie's dealing with, a lot of players just virtually put the shirt on. They don't even get picked because there's very little behind them to actually push them to not be picked. Do you agree with that?
Well, again, if we roll on a bit, somebody finally has the balls to ask him if he knows his best 11.
Yeah.
And then he refers to having to earn your place on the training pitch. And he refers to teams for games, which again, when we come on to it, we'll these were really the key points. If we had a chance to edit this, it would have been good.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I'm just going to answer the question as we go. Again, from Ginger. Gary, you say Eddie is a really good coach. I do say he's a good coach. And if you can prove otherwise with facts, then I'd listen to you. Then he comes and fails at every club. Well, you look at the clubs that he's managed with limited money, with limited player ability. He will try and get the best, as he's just said, from the players that he's got on board. Now, you've also said that he's run them into relegation. Well,
he also ran them into 4 promotions and 5 seasons in the Premier League on coppers.
I think you are taking a small snippet of the lad's career and just said, well, that's it. You're not going to improve. And that's the same as any player. Your only way you improve as a coach, as a manager, whatever you want to call them, is by putting yourself into the situations where you can have a team to work with. Now, we are still very much a team, and you've got to, and please come back to me and say, would you have thought in your heart of hearts that with our team 2 years ago, we'd be playing in Champions League football? None of us would. And that's what I'm saying. You can't just say and go on the negatives from what's happened in the past to say that he hasn't proven himself to be a good coach. He has been limited with what he can choose from, and he's still very much limited. And I hope that, the rumours that are going around, and I still don't 100% believe them, that Man City have won the case, that we'll be able to bring some money in to be able to go out there and spend big in January, because that's what we need right now. We need another 3, 4, 5 players to even be considered as being, top 3 challengers. I do believe we'll be challenging for Europe. Now, again, if he's not that good, how can you say that, we shouldn't be challenging for Europe? That's my opinion, and that's what I said. If you can come back with some facts to tell me something different, then I'll run with it. But at this present moment in time, there's nothing that I've seen with Eddie Howe at Newcastle that proves that wrong. He has worked really well with the limited squad that he's got, and he did the same with Burnley, and he did the same with Bournemouth. And again, I can only go with what I have in front of me. I don't have the glass ball to go onto the training pitch. I wish I could. I wish I could go and see and watch him in coach, because then I could give you some more information. But until I know facts, it's easy to speculate one way or the other. And yes, he does run the lads hard, and we all said that last season. And with a limited squad, it does make it very difficult for you to go and say, trying to push. Now, 450 million on players you can't prove he's a good coach. Come on. I mean, you've obviously got some
Ginger just
agenda here.
Ginger wants Eddie out, right? We've got the message. We've got the message, Ginger.
Yeah.
You want Eddie
that's
out.
what I'm saying.
Fine.
We've got
you
him top
don't
4 and
rate
top
him.
6 for
That's
450 million spend.
There's lots of us who do rate him.
Well, it's like I said. I still think he's a coach that's learning his job, and that's what I said. You have to put yourself in there to actually learn the trade. And if you look at 450 million compared to what our rivals have spent, is peanuts. With the squad that we already had, it's not going. 450 million isn't going to improve the squad in depth. It's only going to improve the starting 11. And that's what I said. You have to look at the bigger and wider picture here. Rome wasn't built in a day, but obviously that's because she wasn't the manager. But I mean, it is an interesting, subject because, like I say, people will always see Eddie on a different scale to other elite managers. Because I agree, I don't think he's elite by any standard, but there's nothing, there's nothing saying that he can't be that way if he's given the time. I don't know whether he'll do that with Newcastle, but he could do it with somebody else if he does decide to move on, which is again another story.
Yeah.
Hi, Eddie. You've talked a lot about collective performances not being quite to the heights you would hope, but some of your bigger players have also struggled perhaps to replicate their best form. With hindsight, do you think they were affected by the speculation over the summer and the difficulties you had at that time?
Well, yeah, just touching on that, I think your collective performance is always defined by the individuals within it. So if your individual players aren't performing, you're going to suffer, especially if they're, in the important areas of the pitch that make the difference. So we have a responsibility. Everyone has a responsibility to try and be at their best individually. Now, you're never going to be there every single game. You're going to have peaks and troughs throughout the season. Every player does. But we need some people to step up within the team, and that will have a galvanizing effect on the group, and that's what we need. And I've got no doubt on the players that are in my mind that they can deliver that. There's no other reason why they can't. As I say, they've trained well this week. There's been a real focus on that. So let's see what we deliver this weekend.
And just many people, particularly up here, would regard Alan Shearer as the greatest striker of the Premier League era. You're coming up against Erling Haaland tomorrow. Could he be the man to take that mantle?
Well, I don't think there's many that are going to get close to Alan because of his record over the time that he did it. Is truly incredible, really, the amount of goals that he scored. When you see the numbers, that's going to be some target to beat. But you're probably looking at someone like Erling Haaland, who's had an incredible start, and just his appetite for goals is incredible, really. When you watch him play, I'm a big admirer of his. I'm a big admirer of his game. But I think the most standout attribute is his want to score, his need to score. He'll really strong, quick, deadly finisher. So he's someone that we have to play very well against. And I think we've had some good battles against him before. But I don't think you'll ever manage to sort of keep him quiet throughout the game. You just have to manage situations well. They've got obvious threats from other areas of the pitch as well. So a real collective effort is going to be needed in terms of our defensive display to keep them out.
Thanks, Damien. Lee Ryder.
Morning, Eddie. On Sandro, he obviously played the 90 minutes for Italy over the international break. Is that something, if you'd have been able to control that, would you have been happy with that, given he's not played 90 minutes for Newcastle?
In what respect? Like, so he doesn't play, you mean?
If he would have been able to play less minutes for Italy, would you have been happier with that, given you're obviously trying to drop him in stage by stage?
Yeah, I think, look, Italy played him for the 2 games and they played him for 90 minutes. I got no issue with that. He long time without football. So no, I'm not going to sit here and say we weren't happy with his game management. I think it was fine. I was really pleased he came through it. And I think when he came back, we had to manage him to a degree because he was very tired and physically and mentally fatigued. It was a big 2 games for him. You've got to understand from Sandro's perspective, that was a big moment. Not just his return to us, but his return to the national team was a big thing. So he's under a lot of pressure, but he's handled himself really well. He's trained really well this week. It looks like his energy is in a good place. So I'm really pleased with him.
And obviously, I asked you this on Saturday as well, but like there's just been this clamour continues for him to start games for Newcastle. What does he have to do in order to get on that starting team sheet?
There's no magic trick. It's train well. And when you get a chance to play well, do that consistently. And I say the same to any player, you'll end up in the team.
And just on the political situation, if you want to call it that, that's continued this week. I mean, it's obviously something you don't want, I would imagine, as head coach, but how helpful or unhelpful is it for you that you've got like Carragher and Neville devoting like 45 minutes on a podcast to what's happening upstairs at Newcastle United?
Well, that's the first I've heard of it. So genuinely, I didn't know about that. So I don't know what to say.
Thanks, Lee. I've got to Chris Waff and then to Jordan. Chris?
Morning, Eddie. In terms of, you mentioned Alexander Isak still struggling with his toe injury. Is he a doubt for tomorrow then, or is he fit and available to play?
Yeah, it'd be a doubt for tomorrow. I think he trained last week before the Fulham game on the Friday. Just trying to remember. And he had an injection in his toe to play. He felt fine. But then he started to feel his toe, I think, in the last 5 to 10 minutes of that game. And then after the game, it sort of stiffened up and it wasn't in a great place early in the week. So he hasn't trained yet. So we'll have to make a decision again as to whether he trains today or he misses the game.
And if you don't have him, are you confident that you have the options to be able to play through the middle? I know Anthony Gordon can play there, but you don't have another fit senior out and out striker. You've got Will Osuna made his debut last week, but are you confident you've got the resources there?
Yeah, I think Anthony, we've always viewed him as our sort of third striker in a sense, because he'll play it differently, very differently to Callum and Alex, because he's not sort of your out and out line leader, but he's very, very clever at what he does when he plays in that role. I think he did well against Wolves in the second half. He's more of a drifter in terms of his position, so he won't necessarily be the focal point, but he's certainly got the pace to run in behind and the ability to link play. So he'll play it slightly looser, but can still be very effective.
Thanks, Chris. Jordan Cronin?
Morning, Eddie. I think I'm right in saying that Anthony and Carvey both prefer playing on the left-hand side and maybe feel they play their best football. Can Harvey and Anthony play in the same team when Alex is fit?
I think you'd be right in that assessment. I think they both prefer the left-hand side. And I think you can see in their performances, they probably play their best football there. Managing that positional need is a challenge that for me, especially if they both deserve to play, that I'm confident we can find a solution to. They have both played in the same team before, but obviously it means a slightly positional tweak for one of them, because you can't play, well, you can try and play 2 left wingers in the same position, but I'm not sure that would work. Maybe that's a new thing we should think about. But yeah, I'm confident we can find a solution.
And there was a lot of fans commenting on Anthony Gordon's body language last week at Fulham. Have you noticed a difference in him since he returned for pre-season?
I think regarding that, Anthony's still the same lad. He's still very, very focused on his career, very focused on his performance. He wants to do well. He wants to do well for Newcastle. I think he, like a number of the other players, a little bit frustrated, and sometimes that frustration in a performance in a game can manifest itself in various ways. So we need to be mindful of that and control that ourselves. It wouldn't just be Anthony. I was frustrated. I'm sure everyone else connected with Newcastle was frustrated. So we just need to be mindful of how that looks.
Thanks, Jordan. We'll go to Craig Hope then.
Just going to stop on there then. Obviously, there's still quite a lot going on in the chat I've seen. What from what you've just heard there, then, what was your thoughts on what he said?
Well, that was the bit particularly when we heard definitively that Isak had started with an injection, which was purely for pain management.
Yeah.
And the injection wore off towards the end. But you're not telling me that if a player's go, we said the same about Sean Longstaff last year when he was allegedly playing with painkiller injections. When they've got that in the back of their head, you're not telling me that they don't, withhold that little bit extra, which is so much about what Eddie Styles about. Everybody, intensity is our identity, all that. When you're not given that 100% every game, it's going to have an effect. And we've seen the effect that it had. Isak was virtually ineffective on Saturday. And you alluded yesterday to the fact that he doesn't win 50-50 challenges at all. He's easily dispossessed. And this is, you're going to be frightened if you know something is. It's a bit like if you have an injection. You get an injection at the dentist for to numb your jaw, and he's drilling away. But you're still in your mind. You still know it's there, and you're expecting that you're expecting it to hurt it, and even though it doesn't. And if you can just kind of relax and let it happen, you're okay. But in your mind, you're thinking, that's gonna hurt, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, like I said, if this was anywhere else, apart from, like I say, people play with fractured fingers, all sorts, unless you're a goalkeeper, obviously. But a fractured toe isn't the worst injury you can play with. Yes, it will have, because with these boots, there's very little protection, and because of the shape of these boots now, the strapping isn't going to be wide and thick. It'll probably be splinted, but you'd still be able to feel it in your boot. But when you give them a block, obviously the block will work in certain parts of the foot. Now, as daft as it looks, you have got to look at it now, the fact that, yes, he will be deterred from going in mental for challenges, but it still doesn't look at the fact that, unless, again, this is where, somebody's put in there, where the hell was Bunce? Now, these are all questions that you're going to say, well, surely that's not spoken. Well, I'm going to say it is. Some players will be told you're better on the field of play than you are on the bench. Oh, here we go. Excuses again, Gary. It's not excuses, trolls. I'm not giving them excuses. All I'm saying to you is when your manager or your head medical would have given the manager, obviously, a rationale behind it, he'll go out there with information about what he can and can't do. He may have been told to completely back away from any 50-50s, because at the end of the day, he is the only fitish 75% fit striker. Now, again, without us knowing the facts, you can't come at me and tell me, it's excuses. I'm saying what I've heard in the past. And it does happen. Players are told what and where to go and get physical and how to be physical. And if you're carrying something and you're the only player that we've got, they may be told to only go in at 50%. Again, I can't guarantee it because I wasn't involved in the conversation. All I'm saying is it's not an excuse either. I'm just telling you what can happen. And like I say, all these, like I say, comments are all quite negative in the background. But he's got a question here. We might as well answer it while we're here. For both of you lads, does Gordon deserve a new contract based on his results? As at Newcastle, he's fit to great heights. Yet, as I remember, he did not get top four. Willock and Big Joe did on the left.
I've answered that.
Yeah,
Gordon was our player.
Gordon was our player of the season last season. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that was in the squad that was totally, utterly decimated by injuries and unavailability.
He worked his socks off for the lads last season. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. For this season, none of the lads seem to be working to any great stake. And you can go all the way back through the team from Pope all the way through. Pope's made some crazy mistakes this season that you probably wouldn't have seen. a season and a half ago. And that's what I said. There's something that's not right with the mentality of the squad. And it's like I say, these aren't excuses. These are just potential problems that we're having to face as a team. And like I say, for me, does Gordon deserve to be paid somewhere in the region of the top earners? Then why not? If we want to try and get the best of this lad and we want to try and get him firing on all cylinders, then you would have to go for, the same type of players. Now, yes, he's still
Our only current England international.
But I'm saying he's an up and coming player. He's not, he's still learning a trade, and he does play better on the left hand side. And now all of a sudden we've got Harvey Barnes to compete with. I said weeks and weeks ago that unfortunately he is a type of player that is a mental player, and he does show in his body language how he feels. And we've all said in the last few games, has his head turned by what's happened. And I mean, obviously there was things this morning said on Talk Sport about, we don't realise how close he was when he was offered to Liverpool. Apparently, that I don't know again the terms and negotiation fact. We knew there was a phone call that was made to Liverpool, but it's come to light this morning when I was listening to it that apparently it was a closer deal than anticipated. Hence, then when we sold Anderson, the deal was off the cards, off the table. Now, as a player, do you know whether you're actually involved in the squad going forward? I'm not getting paid anywhere near the team that I'm playing with. I was the best player according to the team last season. All these things go through a young player's head. Now, for me, you are going to be affected by that, because if you don't feel as though you're wanted by the club, your performances are going to drop. He's trying to get into the England squad on the left-hand side, and all of a sudden, your manager's throwing you on the right-hand side. He's throwing you through the middle. You're not going to get into the England squad by being this type of player. But that's what the type of player that Eddie likes. He likes a versatile player. And again, you can make all. I mean, we're talking NFL stuff now. I mean, I'm not even going to go on that.
I like Lee's comment there. A healthy debate about an unhealthy squad.
Well, like I said, everybody's got an idea. Everybody, but it's like I said. Surely, when you're talking about a subject, there has to be some backing to the debate. For me, I can only go on what I see and what I hear. I go and look at this stuff in depth. There's lots of stuff that I can come up on air and say, but until I know the facts, then I don't talk about it. And that's why I said it. For me, it's all a topic of subjection. And we have been more a reactive team this season than a proactive team. But again, there's going to be reasonings for that happening. It's not all down to Eddie Howe. It could be other things. And I'm hoping what we've found out today could potentially lift the lid off some of our, issues. And apparently now I'm arrogant because I don't listen to other people's views. Now, that's not what I said. Gary, when you say, "Oh, another message should be read out and have learnt manners," all you're showing me is arrogance. Now, listen, why is it just one-sided? If I don't agree, but I saw NFL, I'm not interested in the NFL, Ginger. I want to talk about what's here. I mean, you like I said, it seems to me as if you're pushing a directive, and if I don't want to talk about it, then I don't have to talk about it. That's up to you. But I'm not arrogant. I was more than happy to listen to your subject and your argument last night, but again, it showed no fact. If you can come at me with some fact, then I'm always more than happy to listen to it.
I mean, there's a fact that Ginger's come up with, which is wrong. Isak was player of the season last season. Well, no, he wasn't, and that's a fact. Anthony Gordon was player of the season last season, voted for by the fans,
by the players,
and incidentally by all the players themselves.
Yeah. Exactly. Like I say, I mean, it's like PDK. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, mate, but I'm not going to say it open air. Like I say, he just wants to cause a bit of a ruffle. He has, like I say, lost a little bit of face for me, to be fair. But going on to the main subject, which is obviously what Eddie said.
What Eddie had to say, yeah.
It is obviously there is issues. He's highlighted issues. We all said, didn't we, last week, without knowing the facts, that obviously this could be more of an injury to Isak than we expected or anticipated. They've tried to deal with it the best they can. There's obviously still not a lot of confidence with Asula, which is a shame because, like I say, from what I've seen previously, he has got a little bit of ability. I think it's like everything else. It is a rough diamond, needs a little bit of
the proof of the pudding, as we say.
yeah. And I think just where we have to go with that is, like I say, we have to pull together as a unit. And the beauty of it is Harvey Barnes has now stepped up to the mantle and he's scoring us the goals and supporting the team. What we need now is for everybody else to actually move forward and support Harvey Barnes. Now, there was talk again about people saying, why aren't we scoring on the right-hand side as much as we do on the left? Well, at this present moment in time, it doesn't seem as though we've got a balance on that right-hand side to contribute towards the goal factor. We've seen Trippier, who was one of the most assists in the Premier League not so long back, not really getting over the halfway line these days. Now, there's also a rumour today that he wants, or he's been asked, see if he can be transferred out in January. So, as his head changed mentally, and that's what I said. There's a lot of questions that need to be asked about the current crop of players available to Eddie Howe. And I do think it's completely wrong. When you look at what Eddie Howe's got to for him personally, you've got two young fullbacks that I think could be future England stars, but at this present moment in time will make mistakes. So you're gambling on a player who, as his legs gone, can he keep getting up and down the park to support the team for 90 minutes? But again, if his head's not in the right way, as we saw last year, can still make a mistake. There's loads of different questions. But again, we don't see what happens in the training ground. So what Eddie picks on Saturday will be what Eddie believes is the right way to go forward against Man City. And not until afterwards, we can say, "Ooh, that was dodgy." You know what I mean? Or well done, Eddie, because that's literally how it goes these days, isn't it? Because it's a results industry, and if he doesn't get the result,
Absolutely.
like against Fulham, and to be fair, like we've played previously to that, we've questioned what's happening with the Tonali available now and not being played now.
Well,
that was another good thing that I think Eddie
I don't think
alluded
there's
to.
a channel that's questioned Eddie's ability more than we have.
And that's what I said.
Through our contributors and through the chats that we've had, everybody's entitled to their views.
Absolutely, and that's what I said. But the way Eddie was talking there, he was looking at Tonali not from the fitness point of view, but more from the mental point of view.
No, but again, he's saying there that as far as he's concerned, it's what players do on the training pitch that determines whether or not they get a start. And then once they get a start, they've got to perform. And if they do both, then they'll be in the team. That's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, but as well as I do, there's only going to be certain personnel that are only fighting for the same shirt because there's nothing behind them to back it up. And I do think that does come with a little bit of tongue in cheek when he says that, because, like I say, we all know how thin our midfield is. You're picking from 4 players, for God's sake. It's not that hard, is it? You know what I mean? You've got to pick 3 from 4. Well, 5 if you look at.
And he's admitted that he made the wrong choice on Saturday.
And that's what I said.
When you've been given that small pool of fish.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's crack on. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Luke and then Scott.
Morning, Eddie. I think a big strength of you and your team over the last 3 years has been that we could almost pick the starting 11 ourselves. You had a settled team. There was that muscle memory there. You saw the little patterns and partnerships all over the pitch. Would you agree that hasn't been there this season? And how close are you to knowing your best 11 and finding that sort of continuity and that settled element of the team?
Yeah, I'd agree with your point. I've got no issue with that. I think we're slightly a bit transitional with that in a sense of finding the balance. I think the issue for me is think I would know, given a blank sheet of paper and say, right, go on, write down what you think your best team is. I don't think that would be difficult for me. But the problem is you've got to justify your selection. So those players have to be in their best moment, in their best form. And what you can't do is pick that team if it doesn't deserve to play. I hope you sort of follow me. So I'm a big believer in rewarding people that are playing well. I'm a big believer in there's no set team. Everyone has to earn their place. And if you're not earning your place, you can't play. So I think we're in that moment where we're early season. Players haven't been in their best form. Difficult to pick people if they're not playing continually well. And we're at that stage now where I'm going to have to make some difficult decisions, I think.
I think that talks as well to an earlier answer you gave where you said it wasn't about the balance of the midfield. There was a bigger problem and players have to play like Newcastle players. Does that talk to the basics of effort and endeavour and application?
It talks through all the dimensions of the game, our organisation, our structure. So, of course, I think you need whatever team you pick, whether people think it's the best team or not on paper, that team has to commit to what it's being asked to do and then deliver a performance in the lines of what we've been used to watching here. And I think that's the challenge for us, is to forget everything else and just get back to our very best levels in terms of our energy and our running. And if we can do that, the ability will come back.
Thanks, Craig. Luke?
There's been some news this week that Anthony Gordon's quite close to agreeing a new contract. How good? Is there any update you can give on that, and how much of a good news would that be for you and for Newcastle and for him?
Yeah, I always find that those questions quite difficult because you're
good.
Yeah, you're asking me to comment on something that hasn't happened, with the potential of looking silly if it doesn't. So I'm just trying to think of the best way to answer it. We love Anthony. We'd love him to commit his future here. We'd love him to stay long term at Newcastle and continue his excellent start to his career here. Because when you look at the broader piece of what he's done since he's arrived at the football club, I think he's been magnificent for us. We need to try and help him get back to his very best levels. And if that means signing a new contract, then I'm all for that, to help him be settled and concentrate on his football.
So that's what we were just saying, isn't it? We were just talking about obviously Anthony Gordon, and hopefully by signing this so-called new contract that's on the table. Not sure whether it's been signed yet. It's a 5-year agreement, which would make him one of the top earners. And to me,
well,
that's
the figure bandied about is 9 million total cost.
Yeah.
So that would you would think that would make him the best earner, because that would put him on 180,
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, without knowing the figures, it's just speculation, isn't it?
I think it's going to happen. I don't think there's a problem.
I don't.
But public enemy number one there, who we've just listened to, asked for me one of the 2 best questions of the day, which was, do you know your best 11? And Eddie said
on paper,
he could write down his best 11, but he can't. He has to be able to justify them to the squad, I assume he's saying, or to somebody. And that's difficult if they're not actually performing. Now, that is something that I don't agree with. Because I think if he knows his best 11, he should play them.
Okay.
Because only by playing them will he then realise whether what he thinks is the best 11 is going to do the job.
Can I respond to that before you go any further?
Yeah.
So if he was to come out week in, week out with his said,
I'm not saying he should tell us what it is.
No, neither would I. But I think as a player, you would soon get the gist of it. So if I wasn't part of that 11, and I was somebody the likes of Anthony Gordon, who was obviously very much an emotional type player, he feeds off the emotions of other players around him, because that's the type of player he seems to be. And I always look at that and I go to myself, if I ain't involved in that 11, then I know I ain't one of the best in the manager's eyes. Would that make me want to try even harder?
Exactly.
Me personally, yes. But it may affect the younger a bit differently. That's what I'm saying. So you have to be very careful how you
are
manage
they
them.
not the players that we want to be shot of? We only want to have players who want to be better.
Yeah.
If you're going to have dummy spitters, they are the players we want rid of.
But potentially one of these dummy splitters we've just offered a 5-year deal to. That's what I'm saying. You have to balance the books.
Who's to say he's not in Eddie's best 11?
Well, that's what I'm saying. But again, let's go on to the other question then. Where do you put two players that want to play on the left-hand side?
You've got to make your mind up. You've got to make your mind up. And then if it turns out that either one of them is a dummy spitter, they don't get offered a new 5-year deal.
Well, it's too late now, if he is the one. But what I'm saying to you is you understand the complexity of it. You know, it's not as easy as writing.
No, because I think Harvey Barnes, if it, let's put the, take the elephant out of the room, Harvey Barnes and go. If Eddie, and if it was to become common knowledge that Gordon was Eddie's number one right wing and Barnes was there as backup, all Harvey Barnes has got to do is get into the England squad, get picked for England, and he'll prove he's one of the best.
Yeah.
Or he's got to say, well, maybe I can play on the right wing and prove myself on the right wing, and get put in the England squad on the right wing, because that for me, as I've said, on the channel before, is Gordon's problem, that he wants to play on the left wing because left wing is the best chance he's got of getting in the England team. On the right wing, he's got a lot more competition with Saka and Bowen.
Yeah, I like I said, it's a complex subject, because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't by many. Because, like I say, Eddie will have a 11, I would imagine, set out on paper, as we all do, and he'll have a 11 that he believes can work against the opposition. It may not be a fan's 11, because we always look at the individual performers. But and that's what I said. To some of our players, there isn't enough competition yet to get the best out of them week in, week out. To others, there's lots of competition and you're going to have rivalry. Now, how that works across the field, that's when he has to become a head coach and work on them. And like I say, we know Isak's going to be doubtful because he hasn't trained all week. I can't see him playing against Man City, and he'll probably play Anthony Gordon in the free role, and that'll be working across the front three to try and get in and behind them. We know about his pace. The only problem by doing that, then, if the likes of Barnes plays on the on the left hand side, we know he likes to cut in. That's where we've nearly beaten Man City on more than one occasion, because we went 2 goals up, one from Isak doing exactly the same role, and one from Gordon last year, where we cut in from the left hand side. Now, we know that Barnes can do that. The problem with Barnes is he hasn't got the speed to beat Walker. So it's going to be a good matchup, whoever plays up the middle or whoever plays on the left-hand side tomorrow, because physically, we know that, I believe in my eyes, that Barnes is a better finisher than Gordon, but Gordon's got the pace to beat player like for like. So there's always going to have a chance.
That's interesting.
It's just
the
come on.
so-called font of all knowledge, Fabrizio Romano has confirmed agreement for Gordon is done and will last until June 2030.
Yeah, I'd heard it was a 5-year, so that's obviously with an extension as well. So that's really good.
Hope he's right.
Yeah. I'd heard, like I said, there was lots of talk out there this morning that they put it to paper and there was a talk, but he hadn't signed. They were still negotiating certain points. So that's good to hear if that is the case. Ryan's put down a question to Gary. Does Newcastle have to safe handling of out new contracts in case they end up like Leicester? with too many players or high contracts. Well, it's like everything else. We can't assume that PIF are going to be with us for a lifetime. But what we're hoping is they're not going to put us into a financial scrutiny going forward, because they're growing the squad as well as the team, as in the Newcastle United, commercially. So the business ethics are going to be right. Don't forget, for 14 years, we've not really run the club as a business. It's just been the owner's money. It's whatever's come into the club has gone straight into his bank. So now they're trying to put the correct people in the correct places to expand the whole of the club. So hopefully we will never be in a Leicester situation, because Leicester obviously was still a very small fish in a.
I mean, to be honest, Gary, you know,
they did really well.
To be honest, with the exception of the Noon deal and the Seller deal, all PIF have put into the club is how much they paid for it, 330 million.
Yeah.
Plus the Noon and the Seller deals are from their stable, if you like.
Yeah.
And the 105 million, which is the 3 years at 35 million that we're allowed to overspend on genuine revenue. So the genuine revenue that we have generated has been supplemented by obviously Seller and Noon, who are PIF companies, probably at inflated prices to what we maybe would have got, but who's to say? But apart from that, it's all been self-bought. So we're not in a kind of financial jeopardy at all, because the contracts will be tied into the length of the sponsorship deals, so that even if PIF were to walk away, those sponsorship deals with their associated companies would still be valid.
Yeah. And that's it. You see, I think that they're trying to make us future-proof.
Yeah.
Interested to hear about the Man City, the way they work, actually, about going forward. And it's not all about dipping into the pocket of the owners. What they've done now with their academy, and I mean their academy goes width and breadth of the whole setup. Apparently, and again, I don't know these figures, so please don't make these exact. But there was something in the region of £300 million made just off their academy over the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, but that's taken 10 years to develop.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, we are a long way off. But that's
Yeah,
what I said, Win. We've got to stop this expectation tomorrow. It's going to happen, and it's not. We've got to be a little bit patient here when we're talking the size of the club that we're going to be, and that's what I'm saying. There's always going to be a question mark and a gamble going forward with where we're situated currently. But if they make this training ground, as we go, I hope is going to happen, work. We know what's happening with the academy, with the other players that they're bringing in that aren't.
This is it. What we're seeing, we're hearing about a new young'un coming in virtually one a month now, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's what I said.
And
you're working on the bigger project, aren't you?
Yeah. So if you're only taking in one a month and maybe it's half a dozen in the summer, it's still going to take 10 years before we get anywhere near where Chelsea's academy and where Man City's academy are. And bear in mind, of course, we will be competing for the same young'uns that they are competing for.
We already are. I mean, that's this lad apparently has been touted around half a dozen of the top clubs, and Man City are going from I can't remember the lad's name now. A centre forward, another 17-year-old, really good star, and he had the option to go as well, but because obviously he's looked at the chances of him playing at Man City. Rather than chance of him playing for us, if he shows the potential, and that's the reasons why Sanusi come here.
Which ironically gives us an advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. I mean, obviously you've got to look at Haaland now, and what striker is going to take Haaland's place? Seriously,
yeah.
You know, it's virtually an impossible dream, isn't it? Right, let's get back onto the.
Anyway, we need to plough on. Aye.
Yeah.
How refreshing is it to have a press conference and not be asked about your relationship with Paul Mitchell?
Well, you've just ruined that, Luke. So thank you. But everything's good. Thanks for asking.
Just finally, when the takeover happened, we're coming up to the 3rd year anniversary of it. You're playing the club this weekend, Manchester City, who are the benchmark, who everybody assumed Newcastle were going to turn into. How do you assess where Newcastle are in terms of closing that gap with Manchester City?
Very difficult to, again, give you a clear answer because I've got no idea where Manchester City are. I mean, I see the results on the pitch, but in terms of off the pitch, I've got no idea of what they've done and what they do, how much they've grown the club. And I can have a perception, but I don't know the reality. I can only talk about Newcastle and what we're doing. And I think that we've got unbelievable owners that want to do some amazing things here. But these things do take time. And I think there needs to be patience from everybody connected with the club in terms of how quickly we can move things forward. And the speed of that will always be, I know people will always want things sort of in the here and now, but the likes of the new training grounds, new stadium plans, redevelopment of St James's Park, whatever it is, takes time. And of course, then looking at the team with PSR restrictions, that will take time as well. So I think as long as, from my viewpoint, that we're still trying to move things forward, develop the team in the correct way, there's still a big ambition, then people can see progress. Then I think that's a really positive thing, but it's not easy at the level we're competing against.
I'm just going to stop it there, Win, because I want to talk about the PSR thing. Because, like, obviously, everybody now across a lot of social media are all saying that Man City have won. That they haven't. There's no. It's just literally speculation. And obviously, again, if you watched any of the programs this morning, the sports programs, it's stated on there. I've just had a read before. That's why I was late coming onto the show, and apologies for the slight delay. Before I come onto the show, I wanted to have a look through the Premier League rulebook and try and get some updates. So this is the brand new one, and there's no change whatsoever. Now, again, I looked at Stefan Borson's web page and everything else, and gone through his socials, and even he's saying there's a potential that certain things could have been won on both sides of the argument, and again, it's about rewriting the rule book apparently. And when obviously on Thursday, when all of the shareholders had their come together, and it was said that they weren't going to obviously agree to talk about the ATP, then everybody made the assumption that Man City had won. Now the rule book hasn't changed. Stefan Borson has now come out and said the first thing you'll realise we won't know about it, it'll be a change to the rule book. Now what has happened is there's been some movement one way or the other, or both ways, and I have got it written down, but it's very complex the way it's worded, so apologies, but I will try and make it as simple as I possibly can. So the update, now this is the last one from Stefan Borson. So City or the Premier League might have won, in whole or in part, a highly technical legal dispute seeking an arbitration panel to make an unspecified findings, and we may not never know what actually went on or the result, or head to a reasoning for it if I think he said that twice there, for it has been even been decided, which may or may not have happened. Analyze that. Now, again, it's as clear as mud when you look at it. It's total clear as mud, and that's what he said. To say that one side or the other has won would be just speculation. And because there's obviously there's certain individuals are thinking that the 115 charges have to be supported before you'll hear anything. That's not true either. It's a total separate issue, because obviously the ATP ruling was Man City versus the Premier League, and the 115 is the Premier League versus Man City. So it's a totally different victory. But there's lots of, like Matt Lawton saying, Manchester City appear to have secured a potentially So again, I'll emphasise potentially significant victory because there is no findings on this APT rule. Because obviously there
As
was
you
no
say,
vote on it
Gary,
yesterday.
the only thing which will define how it's gone is a change in the rule book. Now, I don't know whether there's, presumably there must be some mechanism whereby they could change the rules mid-season, but there may equally be a rule that says these rules that are in place now are here for the full 24-25 season. And
That's what
all
I'm saying.
the
It could
and
be
all
a
the
rule
clubs have
amongst,
signed up to abide by those rules.
and that's why it was thrown out yesterday.
Yeah.
Because if nothing was specified now, again, this is what Stefan Borson said this morning live on Talk Sport. And he did mention Newcastle, the likes of Newcastle, that are potentially got these heavy sponsors in the background that can come and support the club. They would be banging on the door if there's any thought that Man City had won the APT result. They would literally be wanting answers, and they would more or less have to force the change in the rule overnight to be then seen in the new league rule book from the Premier League. And it's not happened. So that's what he said. He thinks there's a section of it being won either way, and it won't be. There'll be an agreement where the document isn't changed until a certain point. Now it could be January. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't know. So that's all we can go with. So please, any fans out there, don't think that the next thing you're going to hear is there's going to be like sponsors of 300 million for the ground and things like that. So it has to be voted on. And like I say, there is no. It was thrown out on Thursday at the shareholders' meeting. So, but at this present moment in time, it hasn't changed. It is still the same as it was before.
Blood on.
Scott Wilson.
Eddie, you'll obviously have all the data and the metrics and everything at your disposal, but from the outside looking in, it feels a little bit like maybe some of the intensity hasn't been there when Newcastle's played this season, the high press that was such a big part of what you are, the aggression, the energy. Do the metrics bear that out? And if so, is that a shift in tactics you're trying to make, or is it something that ideally you would like to get back to the levels you were at?
There's definitely been no shift in what we want. No, far from it. We want to step it up and improve it. So there's no part of us that's trying to retreat and become more reactive rather than proactive. So no. But then you look at our ability to do that hasn't been of the levels it's been in previous years, and there's been a whole multitude of reasons for that. It's not maybe as simple as people think. And of course, I've been trying to manage that behind the scenes with the squad. But longer term, I've got no doubts we will get back to that style. Very quickly. It is, of course, the ideal.
And just one more on Alexander. Has he had scans or anything? And is there any fear that this might need an operation at some stage?
No, he's had scans. He's had lots of tests. The injury has been diagnosed fine. There's no issues there. He's got it sounds worse than it is, but he's got a broken toe, but it's one that can be managed and played with, providing he can tolerate the pain levels, and that will have no long-term risks.
Yeah.
So he had an injection to sort of numb the toe last week, and that was fine, as I say, until the injection wore off. So let's see how he is today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. We'll go to Dominic and then Mark.
Morning, Eddie. You said after Fulham you'd have to think of ways to try and make Alexander Isak more impactful in games. Do you have a solution to that, or is the lack of training for him prevented finding that solution?
Well, yeah, difficult. Of course, we've done video analysis with him this week and had several conversations. Yeah, it's clear to me that we need to tweak a few things in his game. Well, I say in his game and just in how we're using him and what we're doing with him. So, but of course, we haven't had the opportunity to do that on the training pitch yet.
You mentioned last season your identity was a big part down to the personnel, Joe Linton being a key part of that. Now, since he's returned, why do you think that identity is maybe still lacking to what it was previously?
It's not just one player. It's not just one player. When you're trying to deliver an identity or a clear vision of how you want your team to play, it's 11 players. And if one player in that 11 doesn't follow the plan or doesn't deliver what you ask him to do, the whole thing falls apart, especially at this level, because teams are good enough to expose that one weak area. So, yes, Joe Linton's return is a huge thing for us to help us. And I think, he'll be a key driver of that, but it's not just down to him.
Next time, Mark.
So I'm just going to stop there because obviously we had a long discussion yesterday evening about obviously what we'd noticed. And obviously there's going to be a lot as there is with Eddie Howe. Everybody's got a pro player that they love and a pro player that they just can't see the benefit of having in the team. I must be one on my own because I haven't got a player favourite. I'd never have a player's name on my back. I don't see the benefits of that. I don't get emotionally attached to any individual player. Because at the end of the day, what I want is the team to play. I don't just want to see flashes of brilliance from an individual. I want to see brilliance from every single player. What Eddie Howe as the head coach has put down on paper for them to achieve, I want them to step up and work to that level. And obviously, when you're having a conversation like we did last night, and it gets a little bit heated, and we all have an opinion, it's subjective as always. And as much as I want to put what I see on not facts based because it's not fact, but it's eye candy, isn't it? I see an issue with the player playing a certain way. Yes, there's elements to it that we know is from the team, but there's also elements from the individual. And it was lovely to hear Eddie make that point that there's parts of his game that he needs to work on. But then obviously he took it back because what Eddie doesn't do is, he doesn't identify one player as the fault. But he did make that statement that he has got certain parts of his game that he wants to develop, but so does the team. We need to work as a team to support him. So that's what I said last night in the debate was both yourself and Chris were absolutely spot on when you were saying that the team don't support Isak, but Isak himself has to step up sometimes to react to the situation. And I think that's, like I say, that's just proven what you were both coming to yesterday.
Blood on.
Eddie, you mentioned training there. Can you just tell us? You said it's sort of almost gone up a level this week. Is that like from where it was before, or is it just that you've kind of demanded greater focus and intensity from players?
I'm not sure I said went up a level, but if I did, then okay. I just think there was a slightly different focus from us, so a slightly different angle, which of course you'll always have depending on your opponent. Depending on what games you have coming up, I think you can shift themes. There was a particular theme of our work, and it was good to see it.
Also, Bruno's been sort of talked about as one of the players who's maybe not quite hit his levels so far. Is that something you're concerned about, or do you think it will come with him and it is still maybe a physical thing?
Yeah, I think, again, for someone like Bruno, who had a very compacted summer, he had a lot going on. He comes back, really short training time, he's straight into the games, and then probably at a time when we'd want to do some real work with him, he goes back away again, long flights. It is difficult for the international players, especially ones that have to travel such big distances, because we lose time with them, and then they come back to us and they're too fatigued to work again. So Bruno's someone that, again, is very keen to do well. He knows that he has to try and give more to the team. I think there's a real desire from him to help the team and get back to his very, very best levels. And I back his quality. There's no denying the character, the player. But he's such a vital part of our team, right in the heartbeat of the team. He conducts so much for us that, we need him back to his best levels.
Thanks, Mark. I've got to Martin, Louise, and then Kieran.
Hi, Eddie. Just interested in your thoughts on Arsenal's game against Manchester City last week, and it's probably specifically the second half performance from Arsenal.
It was a great game to watch. I really enjoyed it. You're looking at two teams. You've got one with 11, one with 10, and it's fascinating because they're such a difficult team to play against anyway, with 11 players, yet alone with 10. So I thought Arsenal did really, really well to nearly see the game out. I mean, it would have been a really fascinating second half to watch for lots of different reasons. Of course, tactically, I'm watching games tactically for that viewpoint, but there was a lot to take from it. And I thought Manchester City did what they do. They always find a way, or usually find a way, to score big goals in big moments, and their spirit is unquestionable. So really good to see the two teams go against each other.
And a lot of European games this week. Are you missing European football, and is it a realistic goal to get back there next season?
To be honest, it's not been in my thoughts at all this week. It's been head down, a lot of work, a lot of focus on us after Fulham, us in preparation for Manchester City. I haven't really raised my head at European football, to be honest.
I want to stop it there, Win, if I may, because there is obviously some talk out there, and I'm just going to, rather than just shout it out from the rooftops, there has been some talk that when Yasser Al-Rumayyan came last week, there was obviously a lot of talk about, obviously we now know about Darren
He's been
Eales
given an
and
ultimatum.
somebody coming in. Well, according to the reports, and again, I'm only guesstimating this because nothing has been, I haven't got any knowledge of this, but the reports coming from the said meeting, obviously there was a number of things that were raised. Eddie has to, and I say has to, get European football this season. That's the PIF objective.
Yeah.
Now they haven't said specifically Champions League. They haven't specifically said, obviously, they have to finish at this point. What they have given him is the ultimatum of being in European football. So at the end of the day, we know now that that's where he's got to aim for. And
I think that's
it's an
absolutely
interesting
right.
thing. Yeah. So, like I said, when people say that he's not under pressure, like he's just said there, European football's not in my brain. I can understand obviously what he means by that is the teams that are in it this year, because obviously that makes no sense for him to even look into that. But he has to be obviously under a little bit more pressure now to get to the the promised land, if you like, from what PIF are expecting from him. And it is easier said than done. You know what I mean? And I tell you what, I did see, and again, apologies for not having this ready to go up and running. I don't know whether I actually. Oh yeah, I did. So this is again the Opta prediction. So this goes on. Oh crap! I've just taken it down, haven't I? What a plonker. But I will come back to the video in a second. So bear with me a second because I just want to put this one up. I know I forgot I can't share. I should have sent it to you and put yours on. On this is where Opta see us finishing. So if I bring this up, so the predicted Premiership, as you can see, they've got us finishing on 62 points. In front of
sixth
Tottenham and
would
Man
be
U.
conference. It would be Europe, but
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how they see the runnings, with Man City being 10 points ahead of Arsenal. So that's interesting. But obviously they've looked at how we've set up now. But to be fair, they've got us on equal fifth, so they couldn't separate us and Aston Villa. And I suppose they'll be looking at how Aston Villa work the Champions League, the European football with that. So it is going to be a different thing, how we go with that. Yeah.
Well, I'd be looking for higher, to be honest. I don't think Conference League will cut the mustard.
No, and I think there's going to be a lot of people will go off from that. I think what we can do now is, because there's very little left of the interview.
No,
I'm just
I
going to
thought the two best questions were Craig Hope's, which
Yeah.
was, "Do you know your best 11?"
Yeah.
And then Dominic's about Isak.
Yeah.
And general intensity and playing, training, and to get to that level of intensity again.
Yeah.
Funny that the two Geordie boys asked the questions that the Geordies are all asking.
All asking. Yeah. And that's what I said. You have to be to the point, even though it may feel uncomfortable for people around you, especially the person that he's obviously answering the questions, because obviously he has to hit the narrative. But
Yeah, I mean, on press conferences generally, I think it's fair to say that prior to this season, Eddie's had a pretty easy ride, because things have been going well, or we've had the injuries as an excuse. But his credit in the bank was such that the reporters were very reluctant to kind of challenge him outright on various matters.
Yeah.
That has now changed. That we're now seeing proper questions, the questions that we've all been saying should be asked and aren't being asked, are suddenly being asked. And so in that respect, Eddie is having to think on his feet a bit more. But as I said, today, what I loved about today's was that his general demeanour looked much better than it's been of late.
But again, he's only human, and if he's been talking to Darren Eales and obviously discussing Eales' condition,
Yeah.
Like I say, I've worked in the health industry for 20 odd years, and it's without wanting to get attached. It's difficult when you're treating people over a period of time not to get emotionally attached. And like I say, sometimes, there's always going to be people out there that just take it with a pinch of salt and just get on with their lives, because that's them personally. I'm the type of person that likes to listen to people, try and support people in the right way, and if I can help, even if it just means me spending 10 minutes with somebody and just listening, I just think sometimes that goes a long way. And like I said, that's probably where Darren Eales has been. He made just the fact that he needed to offload it, and now the club are involved and giving him the support they want. And it's probably been a little bit more pressure on the lads than we anticipated. I'm only assuming that. I don't know that. But I'm just going to go and have a look at some of our questions.
There's a lovely one to nearly finish off on. Geordie Dan, I think the air has been cleared and they know what they are aiming for. Hence, they are now buckling down and getting on with it. Hence, contract extensions, etc. Basically, what you're saying there, Geordie Dan, is at last, everybody, since it's post-Amanda, if you like, everybody will now be pulling in the same direction, which is what we need.
Yeah. Matt, I'm going to let you do the start, if you don't mind. I'm just reading, because I haven't had a chance to read anything of the messages that have been put out there.
Not
so
a problem. Well, again, thank you, Trolls, for your memberships and for being a member for 6 months, and of course for your super chat. And I said we would come to this at the end of the show. I don't trust Howe anymore, not after what he said in this presser. I want him out now. We need a manager that understands that we need to sell to improve our squad. it's far from being a great squad yet.
Yeah.
Well, I don't quite see from what he said at the presser that suddenly made you mean that you want him out. I think just generally you want him out because you don't think he's good enough. But nonetheless, thank you for all of your contributions.
I think he's got a lot to prove, and we've all said that.
He's absolutely got a lot to prove.
Yeah.
Niall Powell played Isak injured again last week. When will we ever learn? Could not agree more. And trolls, I don't want Howe here anymore. I don't see how we grow yet.
Thanks for the memberships there, bud.
Yeah. Different subject, but any chance you can make the US show replay members only? I used to enjoy catching up with Josh Bennion, etc. I know I could join up, but how are you, man? And you know that we do the extra shows specifically for members to make it worth their while being members. So sadly, that's the law of the jungle. Sorry, I've done that one. Tonali good enough for Italy, but not good enough for Howe. It's laughable, to be honest. Yeah, well, I agree with that as well, by the way.
Well, that's what I said. You have to question it, don't you? You know why he's not playing. But again, he did allude to the mental state of the player coming back to playing after the ban. He obviously thinks there's going to be a little bit of a tag set to him with all what's been spoken to, obviously in the press as well. But he also the lovely thing is how he's felt loved by the Toon fans and how he's been supported by the club. And again, you know, we don't know the emotional response that he's had coming back from his international duty. He could have been an emotional wreck. And maybe Eddie's just decided, you know what? I'm going to give him a breather. I don't know what happened with Fulham, mind. I could give him an excuse for the first one, but not for the second game.
Mm-hmm. He's not going to talk much about tactics. He wants to keep the opposition guessing. It's a tactical decision. He's not showing his arse, as some would say. And Foxy's so sad to hear about Darren Eales, indeed. Big learning lesson for part of our fans that have been borderline disgraceful towards him. You never know what's going on in someone's life, which is absolutely true. Byrne and Co getting contracts is down to FFP and them not being able to replace them all. That was down to sorry, I started that because there was a previous comment that's disappeared, which was saying what the hell are we giving Byrne new contracts for, etc. And that's it's so we can actually make some money from them. So you're not throwing their wages money away.
But I think you've also got to understand is we've got to be careful not to be a team giving players away when we are financially, scrutinised by these, these rules that are against us as a club. Nobody else, just us as a club. So we have to be careful. By giving them a contract, just keeps our squad at a decent level to pick from as and when we need. Even though they're not great players, we all know that there's still a lot of players that do need to be moved on. But we can't afford to just let them go. And in January, obviously, that's when they can talk to other clubs and go as a free, if that's what they so desire.
Yeah, for the ability of your manager and the idea how a club moves forward, watch Klopp. He built a mega squad that can compete. He bought for his tactics. Eddie doesn't, mate. He just buys names. Right, Eddie just buys names. Had you heard of Gamaras before Eddie bought them? Had you heard of Isak? Had you heard of Botman? Is Kelly a name? Utter nonsense, my friend. Whatever Eddie spent, don't forget it was spent on a squad that had zero net spend in a decade, while all these other clubs had been building squads. So 450 million, highly inflated. Quite correct, yeah.
It's true.
Wimbledon returned a block of tickets for Tuesday's match. Tickets on sale now.
Oh,
there you go.
I returned mine as well. How silly. because I've got family that aren't well. So I thought, you know what, I can't gamble because if my missus obviously still recovering, but
What, did you get a
all
ticket?
the kids. Yeah, I got a ticket. You know what I said to you? I didn't. It was for
Yeah,
another
you
game.
said you were waiting.
Yeah, I got another ticket, but because the family aren't very well, I've decided not to gamble and return it because somebody else might need to go. And I just thought it was a bit selfish of me just hanging on to it.
Well, there's Trojan again having a go. It's Howe's job to keep morale and team spirit high, and that's when you play good. If he doesn't, by not playing Tenali, which other good players might react to, their game falls a lot. Oh, that's Foxy saying you've never had a name on your back. He says, I reckon you had Gavosha on the back of your
Yeah,
and
never
learned your lesson.
learnt my lesson. Bloody hell! It's
Uh,
funny though. All the shirts I've ever had, I have never had a player's name on, so I
uh,
just don't get emotionally attached to individuals.
I'm the same, by the way. Rodri out for the season with an ACL, which is horrible news as a football fan. I like to see the best players play, no matter what team they play for. Some Arsenal fans laughing about it is so wrong indeed.
Yeah, but they were crying against Man City.
Uh,
There's lots of tears still being shed after the weekend. Trust me.
The best thing that can happen to us is Bruno getting dropped by Brazil. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually enjoying the new format in Europe. Some great games this week, even in the Europa Conference. I would take either of those competitions for next season. Well, I'd take conference as a consolation, but we should be aiming higher.
Wow.
Anything less than 65 points be a failure. I agree with that as well. And Opta had us on 62. But
Yeah.
Foxy's saying I'd take 6th right now, especially if it's over 60 points. That's progress, which kind of is true. The biggest question that needs to be asked is how Wynn thought we can get second. I still think we can get second. UCL's where the money is made, and I thought I was just about to forget this one because I thought it was referring to the NFL. UCL is where the money is made, and he don't want it. What a clown! How do you think Arsenal keeps getting players because they're always in UCL? Who didn't want UCL? I don't know.
No, I don't know. I think he was probably alluding to he's not thinking about Europe, and I think that's been again taken out of the wrong. I'm not sure, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
Worst
but maybe
thing
that's
Howe
what he
did
meant.
was finishing 4th, giving fans unrealistic expectations for the next years. That season was a one-off with a World Cup in between, allowed us to recover well and not worry about December games. Well, there's certainly a lot of truth in that. However,
There is.
I don't. I think when I'm like a broken record. We finished 4th, and deservedly so, in my opinion. And we strengthened the squad with Tenali and Barnes to take us that next step forward and account for the extra Champions League games. We improved the future proofing with Livramento and Hall. So I was quite happy with that window. The problem was that we didn't have Barnes and Tenali, the two marquee signings that we'd bought. We didn't have them for the vast majority of the season. On top of which, we had a whole pile of other injuries that were just crazy. Pretty much every Premier League manager other than Pep has a lot to prove. It's not new, indeed. Brand Geordie Dan, if that's correct, then it shows he really wants to be here. Great news if true. So I'm not sure what Geordie Dan might have said there, can't see. So that is that, folks. That's all of the starred, unless we've got any more new ones in the bottom here. Live. Don't let pride make you admit you're wrong, Win. We'll be lucky to get 6, saying we'll finish second. That's ludicrous. Well, Kenzie 12. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating. I've said if we don't finish within 3 points of the top three, if we don't finish within 3 points of the top 3, Eddie should be on his bike. There you go. Unless we have another series of stupid events that justify that, mitigate it. So there we have it. That's it.
Yeah, just a few things just to touch on. Newcastle United Stadium announcement begins to get real with the fan forum soon to be contacted. So obviously the news on the stadium development and the expansion is Newcastle United will consult their fan forum before making the next move with plans to expand St James's Park or look for an alternative option. The results of the feasibility report, first put out to fans 11 months ago, will soon be due, with CEO Darren Eales and his board eager to put the outcome of the study to the fans first. The COO, Brad Miller, is also heavily involved in the next important step for the stadium, with the club insiders insisting the Newcastle must tread lightly with any moves for the bigger project that lies ahead. So again, that's just some news. Still not known when the feasibility study is back. I mean, I actually believe it probably is back, but there will be some contact made with the fans over the next week or two, I would imagine, to go forward with obviously whatever is decided. And the beauty of this is, rather than just making a decision, they're actually coming to the fans and getting some obviously points across. So again, keep your eyes peeled for that if you're involved with that. There is talk that there's some clothes been dropped today at the shop. So if you have a look, there's some retro gear that's been brought back into fruition from Adidas. That is now on sale at the shop. I don't know exactly what it is, but I can only assume it will be. Remember the black, white, and green one that the lads were wearing when they were playing pool? When we saw the promo videos, I can only assume it's going to be all that kit. And I believe there's some old retro kits also available.
Well,
So again,
that green kit, that wasn't retro. That was new. That I hadn't seen that before.
No, but we had a similar one, didn't we? Back
years and years ago, before Adidas, we had the green with the blue stripes, which I quite liked. Actually, we only ever wore it once, you know.
You remember the training top that we used to have with the, like your burgundy one with the flashes at the side? Well, this is what it's like, but it's in green. So they've obviously put a little twist to it. It's what we saw at the start, and the only other thing, bear with me a second, which is obviously we talked about that in there, is a couple of points that we are on the Opta score of the other 14. We are mid-table when it comes to crosses into the box. So I think that's an area that Eddie Howe wants to support. We're obviously giving Isak something to work off in the middle of the park. We aren't very good at this present moment in time, according to.
You see, again, I don't think Isak thrives on crosses into the box. Isak thrives with balls that he can run onto. He likes to be running at the defence.
As I said, he likes to be turned and running onto the ball or running at defenders. He's not great in the air. We know that he has got flaws in his game, but we all know that he is a great player. But again, I think he's another player that feeds off the lads. I don't know whether you can see that, but obviously these two are
Cole and Beardsley.
As you can see, and just by coming down, 65 goals in 24 appearances, 24 assists between them, and not one penalty by Cole in the 93-94 season. 55 goals between them is still in the Premier League record.
Still a Premier League record.
Crazy, isn't it? I didn't think that was still there. I thought that had gone a long time ago. But great players.
I wouldn't use
Beasley
it
was
like
one of
that
my
out.
favourites of all time. I
Yeah.
still think that lad was an outstanding player.
Indeed, he was.
And well, I think that is it, mate. We've done another marathon. Again, thanks to everybody in the chat for your support. Thanks to everybody that's said, and there's been a few that, in actual fact, we didn't pull up, so maybe we should go through them. Lots of people have sent their support to Darren Eales, going along from what I've seen there. I'm
Yeah,
just
most people, I think, to be fair.
yeah, that have sent their love and best wishes going forward. So I'm just going to mention names because, like I say, I do believe it's from a few of you. So just to say thank you as well for in the chat and being on board with us today. And it's nice to see Tristan back. I haven't seen you for a while, mate. We've got Mason in the chat, Lee, Ginger, obviously, who's been there, Trolls, Jonathan, PDK, Albie, Mason, who's obviously helps us out, Geordie Dan, Brant, Trolls, thanks ever so much for your support again today, buddy. Geordie Toon for life, Mighty Mag,
Foxy, obviously.
Ryan, Foxy, Ron. Who else is there that I've missed? Don't think there's. Oh, Jonathan and Colton. I think. Oh, and Niall. Sorry, mate. I nearly forgot you.
Lee McFarlane, Queenie, of course.
Yeah. Queenie's still there. Yeah,
as always.
Geordie Dan, PDK. I don't think I may have mentioned you twice.
Harmeet Singh,
my
nemesis.
there. Yeah, your nemesis, your counter. I don't think anybody else is there.
Connor.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks to everybody that's taken the time to be with us today. Bit of a lungie as normal for us too. And like I say, it's just nice to obviously talk about what's happened in the presser and take snippets and obviously make a conversation of it. And like I say,
There's Kenzie. Don't forget me.
oh yeah, sorry, Kenzie. I did go through the chat really quick, so apologies if I haven't mentioned your name. It wasn't.
If we've missed you, we'd still appreciate you watching. Hit the likes, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before you go, just give us a thumbs up or even a thumbs down. It really doesn't matter because it just gives us still a notch to go forward. And just to finish off, Foxy has put down, we should give Eales some credit, done a sterling job since arriving and won't be easily replaced. Look at the Atlanta since he left, downhill very quickly. So hopefully we will find a solution. Wish him well.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah, from all of us at NUFC Talk TV, we wish you a speedy recovery. If anybody else wants to say anything before I go, just great. Cheers, guys. Great show as usual.
Cheers,
thanks, George. More than welcome, my friend. So yeah, that's it. We will be back on later on with another chat show. I would imagine panel show.
We'll have a few things to discuss there. I think by then, hopefully.
Yeah. By the time we the rest of the news comes in, and like I say, maybe some more info on the Man City case.
Man City. That's the biggie.
That's the thing now. We just need to see
one that's going to open the floodgates, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
But like I say, from me, it's thank you.
Goodbye from him.
And it's a goodbye from him.
And we both remember to point the right way.
Yeah, well, I always got to remember to go the opposite. It's class, isn't it? We've been doing this for months now, but still never get it right. Anyway, see you later on, guys.
How are the lads?
And lasses.